I'm mean to myself more often than I'd like to be, and I know that many of my fellow hobbyists are as well. We say things like, my skills aren't good enough. I could never make a custom look as good as that other guy I saw on TikTok or whatever. I shouldn't bother posting my work online either. No one will notice it anyway. I've talked about these brain worms before. As a wise hotel manager once said, rudeness is an expression of fear. And as a wise sand and spice enthusiast once said, fear is the mind killer. The spiral of internal rudeness and self-doubt can eat at you, and it's easy to convince yourself that learning something new just isn't worth the effort. Not worth the anger, the frustration, or the seizing up and seething on your couch for hours as you cool off from yet another pin vise bit breaking. It's easy to talk about these ideas, but much harder to put them into practice, so instead of rehashing the same themes I've talked about before, allow me to offer a personal example. This is the perfect grade RX-78 Gundam Mark II. It was the first perfect grade I ever purchased, and the second I finished. That's because in my infinite wisdom as the foremost expert on Gundam plastic model kits, I decided an entry from Bandai's most intricate and most expensive modeling category would be the perfect first project for learning airbrushing. It took 2 years. The Mark II was from a simpler time, when inner frame detail was king and articulation was merely a suggestion. Available in both AUG and Titans colorways, the Mark II retails around $160 to $180, provided you can find one in stock outside of a consignment resale shop. I found mine at a shop called Fit JP, a lovely Pan-Asian general store here in Austin, Texas, which doesn't exist anymore. Proportionally, the Mark II should come as a welcome thrill for the anime accuracy crowd. Its scrunched face and rather constricted abdomen look pulled straight out of Kunio Okawara's sketchbook, rather than the more Hollywood-ready proportions of, say, the Granddad Unleashed. What you may notice, however, is that this example does not adhere to the color palette of Zeta Gundam's questionably moral protagonist faction, nor its unquestionably evil antagonist faction, because shortly after I began assembling the massive kit, I encountered a very welcome surprise. The inner frame of the perfect grade Mark II is a work of modern art. Full of luxurious springs, piping, and rivets, the inner frame demands the viewer's attention, rather than be concealed by the kit's criminally simple armor plating. So, as the foremost authority on plastic model kits in current year, I knew that the exquisite detail on display was just the beginning. It needed more. More pizzazz, more chutzpah, if you will. Which, to my smooth yet miraculously aerodynamic brain, meant applying a generous coat of many, many paints. I already had experience hand-painting my real-grade Sananju by this point, as well as this, the high-grade Gundam Throne Eins. My first attempt at painting a plastic model kit. With 2 paint jobs under my belt, this of course meant that I was a sagely master in the art of model customization. But as any skilled artisan will tell you, they must constantly challenge themselves, lest their talents go wasted like a star college quarterback in the hands of a woefully mismanaged professional football franchise. It was time then for this undisputed master artisan to purchase an airbrush. Airbrushes are a complicated way of applying coats of paint to a surface very quickly by means of compressed air. And in my experience, a generous amount of mental math accompanied by furious shouting. But unfortunately, I was still in my old apartment at the time, and airbrushes require proper ventilation. So the project, with all its parts and individual bins, would need to be shelved until I moved to a new house. Shelved, that is, until I knocked over the storage box the shelves were stored in and had to spend 6 hours reorganizing the whole thing. When the time came to finally buy said airbrush, I spent an entire afternoon researching airbrushes. And since the brand Iwata kept popping up from time to time, I figured that the Neo for Iwata starter set at my local art store would be a fine way to start my new airbrushing journey. For a little over $100 American, the Neo for Iwata starter set gets you an airbrush and a small compressor. One that looks better suited for airbrushing wedding cakes, granted, than plastic model kits. Of course, these concerns get thrown out the window when you have visions of custom paint jobs dancing in your head, and who wants to wait for shipping when this one is right here at the store already? So it came home with me, because I'm impulsive. Thing is though, this is not strictly an Iwata airbrush. It is indeed designed by Iwata in Japan, but it's actually manufactured in a factory in China to keep the costs down. The airbrush itself is perfectly fine for basic coating of parts for roughly 10 minutes, at which point the diminutive compressor decides it's time for you to take a break. This is made all the more annoying when you're also trying to keep your paint in the thing's cup at the right paint to thinner ratio to get it to spray properly, making the delicate art of airbrushing into a spinning plates act. Hence why I would take breaks for months at a time working on the paint job and readying parts for assembly. Granted, not having a proper spray booth certainly didn't help either, so I made one out of foam core and a brushless bathroom exhaust fan and named it Jeff. After well over a year of on and off painting, it was finally finished, and it was gorgeous. Amazing colors, and a partially exposed inner frame to show off the tremendous detail Bandai bestowed upon its design. However, there was a problem. The concept of priming a model kit was still foreign to me at the time, so I figured the dark parts would be perfectly fine without a primed base coat. As a matter of fact, it wasn't. And to make matters worse, the head jewel, which I planned to paint in Turbo Dork's prismatic motherlode paints, was lost when moving house. And yet, even with its glaring flaws, I absolutely love it. It's easy to look at my Mark II and say that I failed this paint job. The repairs it needs are simple enough to touch up, and I could always 3D print a new head jewel. But in the year plus since I finished it, I've elected against it, because the kit is now a reminder of how far I've come, as a builder, as a content creator, as a hobbyist, as a person. 6 years spent in a hobby isn't exactly a flash in the pan. It's a commitment. And to make it extra hard on myself, I spent the entirety of those 6 years sharing my experiences with all of you. I started with no knowledge, no experience, and set out on this journey with the hopes of showing whoever would watch or listen that it's okay to try new things and fail along the way. Because even if you fall on your face, you're still making forward progress. Learning to make mistakes is just as important as learning how to master a set of side cutters and sanding sticks. So many potentially amazing hobbyists and content creators stunt their own growth by getting in their own way. Worrying about what others think and obsessing about being perfect the first time paralyzes them. And before you know it, what starts as a fun weekend project becomes a plastic-clad albatross that never gets off the ground. That's why I embrace my failures. I keep them online. I share them with all of you. Not just for a gag or for tiny shots of internet clout, but because I truly believe that failures are a part of the experience. Sometimes you have to burn down your expectations to allow yourself to grow again. What if your paint job isn't perfect? What if you leave nub marks exposed? What if no one watches your videos that you were so excited to showcase? What if no one tunes into your streams because you think you have no personality? What if you didn't worry about it? Screw up your paint jobs. You can always do more. Scuff your streams. You can always stream again. Because the people that matter won't care about your early missteps. But one of those people must be you. Because you are worth it. Your imperfections don't define you, in hobbies or in life. It's not about where you are, it's about where you're going. Be imperfect, screw up, laugh about it. Have fun. I know it's not easy. I grapple with self-doubt, self-worth, and a lack of satisfaction in my work all the time. But if I stop, that means the doubters win. It means my own subconscious that's constantly beating me down will win. I'm too stubborn to let that happen, because I know deep down, even when it doesn't feel like it, that I'm worth it. And so are you. My Perfect Grade Gundam Mark II is an ode to imperfection. Despite its scuffed paint job, it's still a highlight of my collection, because every time I look at that missing V-fin or the patch of peeled paint, it reminds me not to let fear kill my love for this hobby. To not let my fear keep me from trying something new. Conquering that fear and working outside of my comfort zone not only makes me a better artist, but makes me a better person. It's too easy to become complacent, to be okay with my skills, with being, quote, good enough, since I'm the one that has to live with the thing anyway. Sweating the small details can be very rewarding, yes, but it's so much more important to at least try something new. And not let those small details draw you into the trap of procrastination by perfectionism. Perfectionism leads to burnout, to a lack of trust in the skills you do have, and eventually, the end of a hobby. I never want to quit doing this. It's not even a stretch to say that it's changed my life. I've grown as a person because of this hobby, and because of all of you. And I can't let numbers or internal negativity get in the way. Because I am imperfect. And so are you. And that's okay. That's what it means to build bad Gunpla. Because when you let go of your fear of being bad, the possibilities are endless. See you next time.